Hello and welcome to another Dungeons & Dragons session dramatization set in the world of Alter Aeon. Our protagonists are Kara the Warmage, Morden the Hexblade, Tess the Sorceress, and Sened the Favored Soul. I am Shadowfax, the Dungeon Master. So in case you haven't already figured it out, I'm the one playing as Sened. I held him back from the first session because I wanted to see how the other characters played together without a healer, but it became pretty obvious that they needed one. I like to do voices during the sessions for characters sometimes, but I'll probably just stick with doing Sened's voice once in a while in the dramatizations. Sened's accent is particularly important during play because it provides an easy way to distinguish whether I'm speaking in character or as the Dungeon Master. Our session picks up where our last session left off, with Fernando. When Fernando was frightened, his first instinct was to flee to the surface, but he managed to keep his wits about him and wisely chose to backtrack instead. While waiting on Fernando to explore the sewer pipe here too, our heroes had been left undisturbed. However, while the ferret was making his way back, his mistress spotted something approaching from one of the side streets where one of the skeletons had come before. Tired of fighting everything they encountered, our heroes decided to hide. Morden clambered down the hole and doused his lantern. Tess tried to follow, but slipped down the side and Morden caught her. He crouched and held her, while Kara and Sened awkwardly balanced on his shoulders. They listened. The creature's heavy footfalls trudged past them in the dark. Once the danger had passed, the four climbed out of the pit. Tess started to feel the anxiety of her familiar, who grew more fearful the longer he traveled alone in the dark. Morden lit his lantern and once again lowered it into the pit with their rope. When Fernando found the light and turned down the pipe to face it, Tess could feel the discomfort of having to face directly into the light. Fernando slowly soldiered on, squinting, so Morden angled his lantern so as not to shine the light directly into Fernando's eyes. The ferret soon emerged from the pit and returned to his proper place upon his mistress's shoulder. Filthy and smelly, but otherwise no worse for wear. After some debate, our heroes decided against entering the sewer pipe tunnel themselves, and instead chose to retrace Fernando's path on the surface. Kara lit her lamp, and, guided by her familiar, Tess led the way while the others followed. Fernando's destination was about a mile northeast of the pit that they had dug. It was now the wee hours of the morning. About halfway to their destination, Tess's low-light vision once again served her well. She spotted a group of 6 zombies shuffling down a street that would intersect their path should they continue. Our heroes briefly considered trying to outrun them, but ultimately decided to hide instead. They quickly dashed to find cover, but the ruined city offered little. They managed to hide by lying prone behind the walls of a burnt-down building, and hoped that the zombies would pass by without noticing them. The zombies made no attempt to move silently, and their occasional groans drew closer and closer. Suddenly, a hideous zombie head poked over a low wall to come face to face with Tess, who let out a scream of fright. A furious melee ensued. Morden already had his hand on his blade and leapt up to face the mob of zombies, discovering that 2 of them were nearby. He slashed at one with his scimitar, cutting deep and nearly slicing the zombie in 2. Kara stood up and blasted the one nearest her with Disrupt Undead, exploding a huge, gaping hole in its midsection. Sened had been hiding near Tess, but he retreated to behind Morden. Tess rolled away from the zombie that had surprised her and blasted it with a magic missile, blowing away a huge chunk of it. Unfortunately for her, the zombie chased, and managed to clamp down on her while she tried to stand, tearing at her throat. Tess fell unconscious from loss of blood, and the last thing she heard before passing out was Sined's voice say, "Uh-oh." While Kara moved up beside Morden to face the zombies with her Morning Star, Sined strode past the undead, dodging their attacks to attend to Tess. While he healed her, Kara and Morden battled the zombies side by side, bringing their weapons to bear on the zombies that now surrounded them. They endured some heavy blows from the zombies, but dished out far more than they got. Tess woke up, and she and Sined attacked the remaining zombies from behind. In less than 30 seconds, the fight was over, and our heroes victorious. Deciding that it was best not to linger, Sined quickly used some Cure Minor wounds to heal Kara and Morden to nearly full health, and they moved on. Once they were near the spot of Fernando's underground encounter, the ferret hopped off Tess's shoulder and alerted our heroes to the presence of a manhole cover. With Sined's assistance, Morden pried it open, and a thick puff of smoke wafted out from behind it. They all could immediately feel that the air from the sewer tunnel was warmer than outside. Once the smoke cleared up, Kara and Morden shone their lights down the tunnel. There was a ladder leading down, but it looked like it had been broken and the lower portions bent forward to prevent anyone from casually using it. Morden climbed down, grabbed the bottom rung, and pushed the top of the lower section with his legs to bend it completely backward and clear the way. Morden helped the others down the ladder, although Tess didn't want to slip again and insisted on using the rope to help her down. Fernando could easily climb up and down unassisted, and he untied the rope so they wouldn't have to leave it behind. Sined had closed the manhole before coming down. The sewer was made from clay bricks of poor quality. Many of them were misshapen, pot-marked, or sugar-loafed. From their position, the tunnel ran westward about 30 feet before intersecting with another tunnel that ran north and south. They proceeded with caution. At the intersection, they found that the crossing tunnel dead-ended in both directions at another manhole. They found nothing but dried-up sewage, so they continued westward down the first tunnel. They talked a bit, with Sined being asked by the others what they were looking for, and Sined answering cryptically, stating that he would know it when he saw it, and that they needed to get down further. After a short distance, the sewer floor gave way to a deep pit, which our heroes climbed down into, and upon finding it uninteresting, they then climbed up the other side. They carried on until reaching a dead end, where the ceiling had caved in. Tess sent Fernando through the cracks, and he looked around at what little light they could shine through, but he did recognize it as where he had been before. So, our heroes set to work, carefully removing the rubble without doing further damage, until they could safely crawl over it to the other side. Once they had joined Fernando, our heroes found another deep pit, although this one seemed to have handholds specifically designed to assist climbers. At the bottom, they found a lower level, albeit with radically different architecture than above. Instead of clay bricks, this new tunnel was made of flagstone. The walls had sconces set every 15 feet or so, and the ceiling was much higher, high enough to accommodate a giant. Kara speculated that they might be within an ancient dungeon created by the original inhabitants of Slowey. Local mythology told that the Zulians were descendants of giants. There was a sign nearby written in giant. The sign was that of a proper name, Aeon. it was noticeably warmer down here than it was in the sewer tunnel. Tess decided to light up one of her torches. They all shone their light sources southward down the underground corridor. Tess spotted a trio of large rats clinging to the shadows, seemingly afraid to enter the light. Kara let loose a primal scream that sent the rodents scurrying down the corridor, turning the corner to the left and out of sight. It wasn't long after that Fernando heard a sound that no one else did, which caused him to begin shivering. Alerted by her familiar's fear, Tess and the group all quieted down to listen for the sound. And then they all heard it too. A small meow, like that of a kitten, far away to the east. Our heroes arranged themselves in a marching order, with Morden taking the lead. They cautiously maneuvered down the corridor, turning the corner where the rats had gone. The corridor went on about 30 feet before again turning to the left. They could see something near the far wall before the corner. They approached and saw that it was a dead body. That of a young Zulian male wearing peasant garb. A dart was stuck in his chest. Morden prodded the corpse's foot and then circled around to further examine the body. No sooner had he knelt down when he heard a faint click. He instantly jumped up and back as a dart aimed right where his head had been sailed past and clinked against the wall, tumbling to the ground to rest next to the body. Listening carefully, the group could hear a steady clicking sound thereafter. After about 20 seconds, the clicking ended with a final clunk. More meowing echoed throughout the corridor, now closer than before. Tess surmised that there must have been a pressure plate to activate the trap. They tried pulling some stones from the walls to throw, but were unable to pry any loose. Instead, Sinead had the idea to use their rope to lasso the body and drag it around until they activated the trap. After a few tries, Kara managed to get a good hold on one of the body's arms, and she tugged on it until they saw another dart fly down the corridor over top the corpse and strike the adjacent wall. Morden sprung into action, racing past the corpse down the hallway and speedily searching the opposite wall where the dart must have been fired from. From this point, the corridor continued eastward and branched off, but Morden was too busy to pay attention. As the trap mechanisms clicked from inside the wall, he frantically sought a hole or switch or anything he could manipulate. With only seconds left before the trap reset, he gave up the search and splayed himself against the wall beside the trap. With the corpse still lying on the trigger, another dart was fired from the wall, missing Morden by a hair's breadth. He could feel the disruption of air against his face as the dart shot past him. This time, Kara sprinted up the corridor to join Morden as he once again tried to search the wall as the trap reset. They were so busy with the fusillade trap that the two were caught completely flat-footed by the burst of flames that scorched them from behind. Now severely burnt, Kara and Morden turned to face the creature that had attacked them. It was a kitten that was on fire. Kara recognized it as an adolescent vor, elemental creatures commonly called demon cats. Morden really didn't care what it was, and wasted no time cutting down the baby animental with his blade. Upon hearing the ruckus, another demon kitten sauntered up an adjoining tunnel to join the fray, and was instantly obliterated by a lesser cold orb from Kara for showing itself. Meanwhile, the trap fired for a fourth time, and Tess and Sinead hurried to catch up to Kara and Morden. While running by, Sinead pulled on the rope to get the body off of the pressure plate, but he couldn't free the rope from its arm and had to drop it. Our heroes were now together again, but there were no other immediate threats. The corridor split off in 3 directions from here, with 1 going to the left and 2 to the right. The group took the left path, from whence the second demon kitten had emerged. This part of the passageway had been painted white on the floor, walls, and ceiling. It was still quite warm, and there was a faint smell of smoke everywhere. About 50 feet ahead, the corridor stopped at a dead end. Here they found a crystalline staff resting atop 2 metal pillars, which had clamps that held it in place. Light emitted from one end of the staff, creating a spot on the wall where it shone. Upon seeing it, Sened immediately declared that it was what he was looking for. He tried to take it, but the clamps wouldn't budge. Each had a keyhole set in it. While the others searched the corridor, Sened probed the strength of one of the clamps with his mace, striking it harder and harder out of frustration until he was afraid that he'd hit the delicate staff by mistake and shatter it. Since they didn't find anything, they deduced that the key might be within one of the passageways they had not yet explored. Kara and Morden were still pretty beat up, so it was decided that they would rest there with the staff. Sened said that he would keep watch, since he did not need to sleep to regain his spells, or as he put it, because I do not have such limitations. So Kara, Morden, and Tess set out their bedrolls, put out their lights, and went to sleep. Sened posted himself at the entrance to the corridor beyond the light of the staff, and stood alone in the dark for 8 hours. Had our heroes not been underground, they would have known that it was mid-afternoon when they began to rise. Sened gave them rations to eat. Kara and Morden felt better for the rest, but still had some bad burn marks, so Sened used his magic to fully heal them. With their spells otherwise recovered, the group left the staff behind and entered the main hall to choose another side corridor to investigate. And that is where our session ended. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel to continue following the story of our heroes. Transcripts of our Dungeons & Dragons sessions are available at www.lawful-evil.org/DND. If you enjoyed this and don't already play the game this is based on, you can explore the world of Alter Aeon for yourself by visiting www.alteraeon.com. Remember, the family that plays together stays together. Thanks for listening, and happy modding, everybody.
Alteraeon.com. That's ALTERAEON.com.